Today we are focusing on the spine. And unlike other joints like our ball and socket shoulder and hip joint, where we want to tackle rotational capacity first, with the spine we focus on flexion and extension before rotation as a priority. So for today's class, you're going to need a chair, a block, and a mat. We're going to start with 3 neck cars sitting in the chair, and you can reach your fists out to the side, get nice and tall, or you can grab onto the sides of the chair, anchor those shoulders back and down, and let's bring the chin down towards the chest into flexion. Looking over one shoulder, rotation, side bend ear over the shoulder, and extend back and around, over to the opposite shoulder. Roll it back through flexion 2 more times. And as a reminder, we are never pushing through pain, cramping, pinching. If you need to, you can always make your circle a little bit smaller. We're trying to make the biggest pain-free circle possible. Going the other way, stay in flexion, looking over the opposite shoulder, side bend ear over the shoulder, extend your neck back and around. Biggest range of motion you can muster without compensating. And last one. Good. Okay, grab that yoga block. We're going to place it between the knees, and you're towards the edge of your chair here for our thoracic spine cars. So I want you to squeeze the yoga block with your inner thighs, and we're going to bring the hands up onto the shoulders. Pelvis tucks under, so we don't want the back arching here. Nice tall spine, squeeze that block. And we're going to come into flexion at the cervical spine, upper back rounds, middle back rounds. And now we're going to rotate those elbows over towards one hip as far as you can go. Side bend your torso and then extend back. Don't let your head fall back here. Really want to focus on that middle back. Side bending to the opposite side, rotating and coming back through flexion. 2 more. Exhale, twist, side bend, extend. Squeeze that block. Your extension is coming from between your shoulder blades, maybe just below. Last time, rotate, side bend, extend, squeezing that block. And roll yourself back up. Change the cross of your arms. Squeeze onto that block. Let's get tall through the spine. Pelvis tucks under and coming into flexion. Chin to chest. Curl yourself down, 1 vertebra at a time. Now we rotate those elbows towards the opposite hip. Side bend. And extending, coming from the base of that thoracic spine up through the middle back, through the upper back, into side bending, into rotation, and flexion. 2 more. Exhale as you twist, side bend, extend, keep that chin tucked. And last time, squeezing that block with those inner thighs. Biggest circle you can make with just the torso. Good. Okay. So now we're going to come into some cat-cows. If you can get down into a 4-point, you're going to get rid of the chair and bring in your mat. If a 4-point is uncomfortable for you, you can try coming up onto your fists, so if you have wrist problems, or you can do this using a chair as a prop. So instead of being on hands and knees, you can come into a hip hinge, place your hands on the chair, or you can grab onto the sides of the chair, and then you can work your cat-cow position from here. Otherwise, we're gonna swap out our chair, bring in our mat. Make sure you have your block nearby as well, because you're going to need that. And then from here, we're just gonna work some nice, easy cat-cow. So starting in cow, we come into spinal extension, looking up, arching the back, breathing in. On your exhalation, come into cat. Round the spine, tuck your pelvis under, round the upper back, and let the head drop down towards the floor. Inhaling, coming into cow. Hands pull toward the knees, knees pull toward the hands. Exhale, push the hands forward, push the knees back, and flex the spine. One more time, inhaling, pull yourself into extension, and exhaling, push yourself into flexion. Good. Okay, now we're going to be working with one segment of the spine at a time. So we are going to block our lumbar spine, and we are going to do cat-cows with only the thoracic spine. So in order to do that, we're going to sit back into a frog position. Now, if it's uncomfortable for you to sit with your hamstrings on your feet, you can take your block and slide it underneath your hips for a little bit of extra support here. Otherwise, we're going to come all the way down, and we're going to place the hands in front here like we're in a seated frog position. Okay, from here, we want to not be able to move this lumbar spine. So by sitting back on our heels, we're sort of already locking the lumbar spine in a position. We're gonna further lock it in place by tucking that pelvis under a little bit. So kind of squeeze your glute muscles and freeze that lumbar spine in place. Okay. From here, this is going to be probably a pretty small range of motion. You're going to inhale, pull your hands toward your knees, and come into thoracic spine extension. So you're pushing your chest forward, you're trying to arch that middle back. You can look up slightly here. And on the exhalation, see if you can come into thoracic spine flexion, pushing the floor away, and you can let the head come down. So we're going to inhale, T-spine extension, exhale, T-spine flexion. And just do your best to isolate here. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's really just about feeling, can you separate your thoracic spine movement from your lumbar spine? One more. Inhale, pull, extend, and exhale, push, flex. Good. Okay, now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to block off the thoracic spine, and we're going to see if we can just work anterior and posterior pelvic tilt with the lumbar spine. So to do that, we come back into a 4-point position, and we're actually going to flip our hands up and cradle the top of the head with the hands. So it's kind of like you're going to come into a headstand in yoga, if that's something that you've done before. We're not going to come into a headstand. So you've got your head in your hands. You're going to push the floor away. Think about locking that thoracic spine in place. And now from here, we're going to arch the low back, tip that tailbone up towards the ceiling. As you exhale, tuck the pelvis under. Use those low abs to pull that tailbone down towards the feet. Inhale and arch. Exhale and flex. So we inhale into extension as the tailbone
Tips up, low back arching. We exhale as we round that low back, coming into posterior pelvic tilt. Inhale, anterior tilt. Exhale, posterior tilt. Try one more. And exhale, tuck.
Good. Okay, not the easiest thing in the world, but good effort in separating those two things, just doing your best to really feel what is happening at different segments of the spine. Next, we are going to go into full spinal flexion from a 4-point position, and we're going to do a couple of pails and rails from there. You're going to feel a lot of action happening with your ab muscles. And the reason we really want to focus on flexion, even though a lot of us might be stuck in that kind of rounded spine posture, is because it will actually help us to gain more extension. There used to be a time when I thought that, jamming your upper back over a foam roller is going to really make a grand difference in posture and in being able to come into spinal extension. Well, I have since added to my education to learn that if you want more extension, you have to focus on more flexion. So we're going to come into our cat position from a 4-point, and we're going to work on our pails and rails there. So down on all fours, we tuck those toes under. On an exhalation, we're going to come into maximal spinal flexion. Pelvis is tucked, middle back is rounding up towards the ceiling, upper back is rounding, and we're not letting our heads fall forward. We want to be gentle with the neck, but go ahead and tuck the chin and let the cervical spine come into flexion. Okay, from here, our pails contraction is we're going to draw the hands toward the knees and the knees toward the hands while staying in spinal flexion. So we're going to be pulling, you're going to feel a lot of that abdominal activity, and then your rails contraction is going to be pushing the hands forward and pushing the knees back while trying to get even more spinal flexion, okay? So if your wrists are uncomfortable, you can try coming onto fists if you have enough padding here. Otherwise, we are here in our 4-point, relaxing into spinal flexion, and we're going to do our first pails contraction. So we're going to start to ramp up that tension slowly. Start to draw your hands toward your knees and your knees toward your hands, staying in spinal flexion. Ramp up that intensity. We're going 30, 40, 50% of your greatest, safest effort. Keep ramping it up. And once you get up to your greatest, safest effort, you're going to hold here for 10 seconds, pulling. 10, 9, 8, hello abs, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now rails, push the hands forward, send the knees back, try to get even more flexion out of your spine, and hold here, 10 seconds, pushing. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Do not come out of the stretch, but relax the tension. Good, we're gonna do that one more time. Take a nice deep breath in. Exhale fully here. And here we go, second set of pails. Pulling, hands toward the knees, knees toward the hands. Take about 5 to 7 seconds to ramp up that intensity so you get up to your greatest, safest effort. Pulling, still flexing in the spine, and hold. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7. Keep tucking that tailbone under. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch to rails. Push, hands forward, knees back. Try to round that spine even more. Hold. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And slowly relax the tension. Good. Go ahead and sit back. Shake out those hands and wrists a little bit here. Ooh, good work. It can be pretty intense. So if you need to grab some water, hit pause, take a little break, we're just gonna wrap up with 3 spinal segmentation CARs in each direction. So we will be back down into that 4-point position. So you can give your wrists a little rest here, a few circles. And now we're gonna try to segment our spine 1 vertebra at a time. So this is not easy to do. Do your best. You may want to close your eyes. Sometimes that helps to feel a little bit more into your body with what's happening. So take a moment just to watch this demo, and then we will do 3 in each direction together. Coming back down into that 4-point, we're going to start in full spinal extension. Here we are in cow. And now 1 vertebra at a time, you're going to try to come into flexion starting at the tailbone first. So we're going to tuck the pelvis under. You're going to round the lumbar spine. You're going to round the lower thoracic, middle thoracic, upper thoracic, and neck is the last to come into flexion. Now you're in your full spinal flexion. To reverse, you're going to come into extension starting at the tailbone, arching the low back, middle back, upper back, and finally the head. So we're going to do 3 in that direction. Then we are going to reverse. We'll be here again in spinal extension. Now we start with the head. We come into flexion, cervical spine first. Upper back rounds towards the ceiling, middle back, lower back, and pelvis. Reversing from the head first, we come into extension. Gentle with the neck, looking up. Extend the upper back, extend the middle back, extend the low back. And we will do 3 in that reverse direction. Okay, come on down. In your 4-point, toes are tucked, and we're gonna start in that full spinal extension, arching the low back, looking up, and now 1 vertebra at a time. I want you to push your hands forward, send your knees back, round from the tailbone. Tuck that tailbone under, round the low back, round the middle back, round the upper back, and let that head come forward. Full spinal flexion. Now you're going to pull your hands toward your knees toward your hands. Start at the tailbone, coming into extension. Tip that tailbone up towards the ceiling, arching low back, arching middle back, arching upper back, and cervical spine is the last thing to come up. 2 more, push the hands forward, knees back, tuck the pelvis under, exhaling. Coming into flexion. Try to feel 1 vertebra at a time, rounding up towards the ceiling. When you get there, reverse. Hands toward the knees, arch the low back. 1 vertebra at a time. Don't rush. Don't let that middle back arch first. Inhaling as you come into extension. Last time, push the hands forward, knees back. Round the low back. Round the middle back. Round the upper back and the neck. Last time, pull the hands toward the knees toward the hands, arch the low back. Try not to jump the gun here. 1 at a time. Inhaling your way into extension. Now we reverse the direction. Hands push forward, knees push back, come into flexion at the cervical spine. Try to round just your upper back. Moving down the spine, round just your middle back. Round just your lower back and your pelvis. Pull, hands to the knees to the hands. Extend, chin up. Try to extend that upper back, middle, and lower. Again, push. Cervical spine first, flexing.
Think about keys on a piano. Sometimes that is helpful to let you go slowly and one at a time. Inhale into extension. This is not easy work at all. Just go slowly, do the best you can. You have one more rep, pushing forward. Flex, upper back, middle back, lower back, and last time extending cervical spine, thoracic spine, and lumbar spine. Excellent job. You made it through the spine class. Good work. There's a lot more stuff that we can do here, but this was a great start. Thanks for joining.